with a status update on Randy Orton returning to WWE and more. This is Wrestling Rambles. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Mentioning how he was wrong about Seth Rollins not being a big-time player in WWE, Eric Bischoff noted on his 83 Weeks podcast. Let's say this: in 2019, when I spent a moment in WWE, heard a lot of conversation about Seth Rollins. Even before I got there, Seth Rollins was on, the fans' radar, the internet wrestling universe's radar, and heard a lot about him. I didn't see it, And when I say that, I mean just in a very little interaction professionally. I didn't produce anything that he was involved in or anything like that. So I didn't really work with him one-on-one to get to know him. But just being around him and getting the vibe and seeing him backstage, I just never saw him as a big-time player. Clearly I was wrong. He is a big-time player and he is amazingly talented. He's got a lot of depth. He's got that willingness as a performer to let go of his own ego and to experiment, to work outside of his comfort zone. That's what makes good actors and actresses and wrestlers and any kind of performer, is letting go of who you really are and becoming something else and doing it in a believable way. And I don't think anybody does it as well as Seth Rollins. He's so good at what he does and in a way more diverse as a character than just about anybody that I can think of in the last 20 or 30 years. In some respects, you see a little bit of Shawn Michaels or a lot of Shawn Michaels and Seth Rollins because physically he's very gifted, he's very talented, and he's confident enough in himself to go so far outside of his real self to be a character that I think that he's got a bright future. I can't say enough of it as far as the match goes. I guess maybe because I don't know the backstory. With her set to be at the All-In event in London, Toni Storm said this to the Daily Star. "I just wish Wembley Stadium could be at a different place because I lived in England for a really long time. It's where I got established, so I made a name for myself and I have a British family. I'm just really bummed out that I have to go back. I thought I left my life behind there, but it's what champion does. However, I'm no longer associated. I'm American now. The only reason I'd be excited about seeing all of those fans again is I get to rub it in their faces how successful I am. The only thing motivating me is my excitement to really show off just how great I've become and denounce my British citizenship at Wembley Stadium. I can't think of a better place." For the original plans regarding the recent United States title tournament, it was noted that Ringside News reached out to ask about the US title change on this week's SmackDown. After all, Rey Mysterio wasn't even scheduled to be in that final match against Austin Theory. We were told by a tenured member of the creative team that Rey Mysterio was always scheduled to win the title on SmackDown. That being said, the chaotic angle actually all went according to plan. Talking about Goldberg having heat in the WWE locker room, Maven said on Rene Dupree's podcast, "Remember when Goldberg got to WWE? It was 2003, his first run. Everybody was hating on him because I think he was making like $3 million and wasn't wrestling house shows because when he was, I was tagging with him. All I did was go out, like Evolution would go out to the ring, and then my music would hit and I would come out. Now mind you, this was after wrestling earlier in the night, and then I would get halfway down and then Goldberg's music would hit. Like a dumbass, I would turn around. It would hoard me from behind and then literally 20 minutes of nothing but heat." Touching on his current role in AEW, Jake Roberts told WrestleBinge, "I am coaching some in AEW. They've changed up the order of things there, so we gotta figure out where it fits now. With that Saturday show Collision starting, it really changed everything up." At the post-show event for SummerSlam, Paul Heyman told the media that the Bloodline saga was only in its third inning, as Kurt Angle responded to this on his podcast. "The storyline is great, I love it, but I think Heyman was full of I think they're in the 8th inning and they're stressed. They're making up now. That's what I believe. Paul Heyman, I know him, and I know that he's probably going crazy right now. What do we do next?" Heyman would reply, writing, "No matter what inning we're in, at least we're not looking for exposure through the next Old Timers Day. Ahem. And just for the record, I typed this tweet with a broken freaking fingernail." Speaking about the live attendance numbers for WWE and AEW, Ringside News wrote, WrestleTix dropped numbers for this week's shows, and WWE's flagship show Monday Night Raw took place at the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota this week. They drew a respectable crowd of 9,498 fans. On the other side of the spectrum, AEW's Dynamite took place in the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio, with a reported attendance of 4,231. This marks the lowest attended show of the week among the 4 events in this article. Meanwhile, WWE SmackDown, which aired from the Scotiabank Saddle Dome in Calgary, Alberta, managed to attract a larger crowd with 10,521 attendees. This impressive Canadian turnout showed up to see SummerSlam aftermath firsthand. AEW Collision, held at the Greensboro Coliseum Complex in Greensboro, North Carolina, saw a reported attendance of 5,166. This week, it appears the Collision beat Dynamite in attendance. Only time will tell how the television viewership turns out. When talking about how women in WWE have a hard time, former writer for the company Vince Russo said this on the Wrestling Outlaws. They do have it rough. They really do. Been there, done that, saw it. They really have it tough. Vince McMahon is a sexist. All the guys who've been there forever, there's a place for the women. No matter what they do, there's a place for them, and that's just the way it is, man. Following AEW Collision, CM Punk would be in the ring where he took a shot at his real-life rival Hangman Page. Here's the clip.
Yeah! Yeah! Earlier today, I went to a local supermarket and I figured out why they call him Hangman. It's because the pegs in the toy aisle are full of Hangman action figures because nobody wants to buy them. Oh! You son of a bitch! He's a peg warmer. Unlike me, who moves merchandise and pops ratings and sells toys. Okay, everybody in AEW say, I'm the heart, I'm the soul, I'm the spirit. Well, that's objective. What is a fact is the people who say that certainly aren't the chin of AEW, because the lights go out faster than what? GTS, go to sleep. I don't know what I'm trying to do. I got locked too. I told the House of Black no chops, and they chopped me, so I'm very mad. So I think this is what we...
Recalling the injury that led to his retirement from in-ring action, Ted DiBiase revealed on his podcast, this is something that it wasn't just, it was kind of like this, I was worried about this anyway. Started having this numbness in my left arm, and I didn't know where it was coming from. And I go and see a doctor, and he says, you've got a disc issue. And he says, what we need to do, he says, the way we fix this is we take it back. Then they would take a bone chip from your hip, put that in there, and then fuse it. And I hadn't had this before I had any surgery. But I felt obligated to go back to Japan because, Giant Baba had been so good to me. And, the whole tag team tournament thing and everything, I told my wife and I said, this will be it. And so, but it was, I only got through a couple of days of that tour and realized I can't keep going. And that's what I told Giant Baba. And, I said, I apologize. I said, you guys have been so good to me. And I said, I just had to come back and try. And he understood. And the other thing that amazed me is this was like a 3-week tour. And I was only like 4 or 5 days into it. Yeah. And he says, I'll be at the hotel and pay you tomorrow. He paid me for the whole tour. He understood because he had the same thing, the deal with the disc in his neck. I didn't, it's kind of like, I know that after I had the surgery, the doctors told me, they said, now he says, here's the thing. He says, the odds of it happening are 1,000 to 1, he says, but now that you've had this thing is done, if you ever get hit or something just the right way, it could leave you paralyzed. Not worth it. And I said, that's it, I'm done. So that was it. with it previously reported that Randy Orton should be back in the ring at some point this year after being away from WWE programming since May of last year. Fightful recently said this. Sources within WWE Creative said that as of this past week, Randy Orton has not been factored into WWE creative plans whatsoever. We've heard that he's not yet cleared for in-ring training or action, and those we've spoken to say that there hasn't been an extensive conversation about what the plans will be for Orton. As of now, before in-ring training resumes, Orton is planning to make a return to the ring. However, a lower back fusion isn't typical among pro wrestlers and is uncharted territory for many. Doctors have told Orton that wrestling in the future isn't a good idea, but he still plans on it. He has resumed lifting, and we've been told he's huge as a result. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.